We're just getting started. So webinar's set to start at 10 a.m. and we're just waiting for a few more people to join and then we'll get started. Today's session's all focused on payroll and a little bit of CIS. Okay, great. So we'll just wait for another minute or so whilst a few more people are joining and then we'll get started. Okay, great. So let's get started on the payroll module then today. So this is a webinar of Nomisma. It's mainly for existing Nomisma users, but it's also really useful for anyone else that may not be using Nomisma at the moment to see as well, so that you can see exactly how Nomisma works and how it can benefit accountants, bookkeepers, and their clients. So Nomisma itself has been designed for accountants and bookkeepers, and as you can see from the screen that I'm sharing, everything here is purely built for accountants. So you've got all of your KPIs on the top, your clients on the left-hand side, and your deadlines on the right-hand side. Now, if you want to find out more about Nomisma and the other modules, what we cover, such as self-assessment, bookkeeping, final accounts, or partnerships, then you can get in touch, visit our website and attend another webinar, or have a personalized one-to-one demonstration to see exactly how it works. We do also offer training sessions that you can book in with an account manager so that you can ask more specific questions and get them answered there and then. And if they don't know them, then they can go to one of our technical support team in order to get a more precise answer. But this session is focused on payroll. So on the left-hand side here, I can see RTIs that I need to submit and all of the different entity types that I need to submit them for. So limited companies, sole traders, individuals. And then on the right-hand side here, we've got deadlines. So we can see all of our RTIs that are overdue, how many are due within 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, and 3 to 6 months. And the beauty of this is that all of these numbers you can actually click into. So if I wanted to see my 10 payrolls that I need to run, I can click that 10, and it will then take me to this screen here where I can see all of the payroll submissions that need to be ran that are overdue. And I can see that they're overdue because the pay dates are all in the past. But one of the nice things of this page is the fact that you can see all of your clients in one place. You can see the last payroll information that has been generated for them, and you can see the frequency, the next pay date, and who it's been assigned to. So who is actually going to be running this payroll within your practice. So if I select assign, I can assign it to a member of staff. Now, I've got loads of test accounts on this account, which is why my name appears so many times, but I could assign this to Nivi, or I could assign it to Reese and save that. And then once I update it, it will update it here to Reese. And that just allows every other member of staff in the practice to know that Reese is working on the payroll for employee ticked and it's in progress. Now, if you wanted to change the status, he could also change the status there. On the right-hand side, we've got the ability to view the payroll, which will take you into the payroll to begin running it, and it will open it in a new tab. So on this specific one, there's no employees, so it's not a very good example. You can also edit, which will take you to the edit payroll details, and it will allow you to start editing all of the employee payroll details. You've got notes, and then in the drop-down menu, it's just the three icons, but shown in the drop-down. Okay, so from here then, if we go into an employer's profile and select Nomisma Ash testing, you can see I've got one employee listed already. And for that employee, I can go in, edit their details, process pay, mark them as a leaver, add annual leave, or add additions, deductions, or attachment of earnings. But before we go into that detail, let's start with editing the company. So this would be the first step that you would take once you've added your companies to Nomisma, and you can add them manually, or you can import them via a CSV. Now, in terms of the CSV upload, I'll show you that shortly, but this is the process that you will follow straight away. So you can enter all of your details for the company name, internal reference if you have one, the address, postcode, and a logo will be uploaded to the payslip. Within contact details, these are the main contacts for the company that you're running the payroll for, and the main contact will actually receive payslips if you want to send it to the employer, or you can send payslips to the employees instead. But the main contact will also receive the employer's summary, which details how much tax to pay and when to pay it by and how to pay it. Within payroll details, we've got all of our company information, so our registration date, our POE reference number, our accounts office reference. You've got the ability to close the POE scheme, and this actually goes through a full workflow and will make a submission to HMRC, and it will prompt you to P45 all of your staff before doing it. Yeah, so at the moment it's saying that the P45s have not been issued to the employees. So issue the P45, submit all outstanding RTIs, and then deregister the company. We've also got bookkeeping links. So here you can actually decide how you want to edit your links with Nomisma's bookkeeping. So I've got my company that I can select which one I want to link it to. The director expense type, where that should be posted, and the employee expense type, where they should be posted. Now, if you want to select advanced linking, you can actually select exactly where all of your employees' remuneration should be posted in the bookkeeping. So you can actually have custom nominal codes and post them to different nominal codes rather than our default. Okay. And then here we've got P11D, so I'll just go ahead and enable that. Payment management, I'm actually midway through the year, so I can't enable that at the moment. However, if you do, you'll be able to enter exactly how much money has actually been paid to HMRC, so you can perform the reconciliation between HMRC and your P32 report, essentially. And then you can enter all of your interest is due and things like that. And that will make sure that the employer's summary that is sent to the employer will display exactly how much they need to be paid to HMRC according to HMRC's records. Okay, and then we've also got the ability to mark them as registered for CIS. Now, if I do that, then it will link it with a CIS module, and it will pull through all of the deductions from many subcontractors. But initially, it will also prompt you to select which company it links to. So you can either create them as a contractor, and that will take all of their details, add it to the contractor, or you can link it to a contractor. Okay. So we'll just save that and then move on to payroll settings. So here, this is where you'll be able to select your Nomisma start date, and that will be the first date of the first payroll that you would like to run through Nomisma. So if you are switching to Nomisma mid-payroll year, then you would need to, let's say it was the start of January, you would need to enter the date as the 1st of January 2022 here. And then you would need to enter all of your opening balances for all of your employees as of the 1st of January 2022. And you can get a report from your existing payroll software and put that into Nomisma. We've got company pension. So by enabling this, it will allow you to actually submit pensions directly to a few different pension providers. Most notably, we've got Smart, Nest, Legal and General, and then Aviva, Now, and the People's Pension. Yeah, that's a really important one. So they're the pension providers that we support. And within the frequency here, you can either have a single frequency, or if you have multiple payroll frequencies that you are running, you can add additional ones. So in addition to the monthly, we could also have a weekly, we could also have a fortnightly, and a 4-weekly. And you can select when the period should end and the weekly pay date. So once you set that up, it will then create all of those payroll submissions on an ongoing basis for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete them. Okay, and then just below that, we've got the automated payroll. So at the moment it's disabled. However, if I select that, it will take me through a workflow of setting this up. So by enabling this, your payroll will automatically be filed with HMRC and payslips will be sent to the employer or employees. And then by continuing, you can select how the payslip should be sent. So should they be sent to the main contact, to the employees, or don't send at all? You should an employer's summary be emailed to the main contact? Yes or no? As you know, there wasn't a main contact added to this client. Sorry about that. So should an employer's summary be emailed to the main contact? Yes or no? So at this point, you can select continue and it will enable the automated payroll. So this is particularly useful for director-only submissions where you're submitting the same payroll every week, every month. So it will completely eliminate the administration for you. It will run the payroll, send the pay slips, submit the payroll to HMRC, post the journal to the bookkeeping, and all of your admin's covered. All you would need to do is just monitor it to make sure all of your filings are going through, nothing's failing, but you will be notified if there are any failed filings. Okay, so here we can select the next payroll run date. The Payslip template, we've got 2 different colors, green or blue, your preference, but you can preview them here so you can see exactly what they look like. You may be familiar with both of the looks and feels. They are consistent with the UK payroll industry. Okay, and then you've got the option to display annual leave on payslips. So this will show the balance and any leave taken during any payroll periods. And then finally, we've got the password protection. So you can select whether or not the PDFs or the zip files should be password protected. And by hovering over the I or selecting the I, it will give you an explanation as to how the password is calculated. Okay. The next step we've got is allowances and schemes. So here we can select whether or not the employer is entitled to the employment allowance. That will then trigger the EPS to be filed, and it will include the employment allowance on the EPS. You can also select whether or not they should be on the quarterly payment scheme. whether they are entitled to small employers relief, and the apprenticeship levy, what their entitlement is to that. For opening balances, this is really quite useful if you are migrating mid-year, so you can update any balances that are due to HMRC prior to entering all of your details into Nomisma. Within the pension details, so you can enter your staging date, your compliance date, your re-enrollment date, signatory title, name, email address, phone number. And once you save that, it will go ahead and begin creating the link with your pension provider, allowing you to submit pensions directly to the pension provider, as well as submit auto enrollment details for all employees. Okay, and then we've got general terms. So here we've got our bank details, and this is useful so that you can create BACs files which can be uploaded directly to the bank. If you're running a payroll that has a lot of employees, by generating this BACs file, it can save your client a lot of time rather than them manually processing all of the payments to employees. Say if they've got 30 employees, they may go onto the bank, process all of the payments manually. Whereas if you can give them a BACs file, they can go to their bank account, upload that BACs file, and within minutes, they can process payments to all of their employees. So something that could help your clients there. In order to do that, all you would need to do is enter the bank details for the company here, and then in each individual employee record, enter their bank details. And then Nomisma will take the company bank details, employee bank details, the amount of payment that should be made to the employee, and create that BACs file that can be uploaded to any bank. Okay, and then we've got common contractual terms. So when does the leave year start? How many leave days are they entitled to? What is the holiday pay rate? If they're paid hourly, that's particularly useful. The maximum carryover, so how many days can be carried over to the next holiday or annual leave period? When is the cutoff date? So let's say the leave year starts 6th of April 2021. So it will end on the 5th of April 2022. So I can carry over 28 days maximum. So if I had 20 or let's say if I have 30 days, I would lose 2 days on the 5th of April 2022, sorry. But 28 days would be carried forward. And then if I enter this as the 30th of April 2022, then that employee would lose all of their carry forward annual leave as of the 30th of April 2022. And then we've got weekly working hours, maximum sick days. What is their notice period? So how many days is their notice period? Accrued pay overtime, and leaves overtime. This is just so that you can keep track whether or not they do pay overtime, whether or not the leave that they are entitled to, particularly useful if they are a 0-hour contract. Does that accrue overtime as well? Or sorry, do they accrue annual leave for the overtime that they've worked? If so, tick yes. And then you've just got some other information about this company. So save that. And once you've gone through all of those pages, then your company will now be ready to run payroll. The next step would be to add your employees. So you can do that by going to new employee and then adding them manually. Or if we go back to the agent hub and select dashboard, we can import companies and import employees. So I referenced the CSV file earlier, but you can actually upload them in bulk. So there's a download template option where you can actually download it into a CSV file, populate that CSV file, and then simply upload it and follow the process on screen. Now, within the template file, there is a POE reference number. So you can select or enter that POE reference number for all employees. Nomisma will then check all of the companies you have and then allocate the employee to the POE reference number that relates to each specific company. Okay, so from this point, if we go in and add a new employee, we can just run through entering some of their details. And then we can enter the nationality, the address. Country will be England. And then once you've entered all of their personal details, you've got the mandatory payroll information. So here you can enter their payroll joining date, their payroll ID will just be an internal reference, or we can enter 2. Now, an RTI submission ID, this is really rather important if you are migrating across from another software provider. They may use this, they may not, but HMRC look at the RTI submission ID and then use that as a reference to link employee profiles. So if you're submitting a payroll from another payroll provider and they use one submission ID and then Nomisma uses another, then at HMRC's end, there may be a chance that they would duplicate the employee record. Now, by entering this, it would reduce that risk, but HMRC are willing to combine and merge the records if this does happen. So just give them a call or send them a letter and ask them to do that. Okay. I mentioned earlier about the bank details. This is where you'll be able to enter them. You can also select your payment method, how you'd like to pay the employee, the pay frequency. If I added additional frequencies into the company, I can then select which pay frequency this employee should be on. We've got the national insurance category that they're in, and then tax code. You can also select whether or not they're a company director and their starter declaration. So if they had another, or if they have another job, you can enter the P45 details. And then enter their leave date. Save that. And now I can go to pay details. So within the pay details section, you can enter a portal login username. And this is really useful because with Nomisma, all of the employees that are on a company payroll can actually log in to access their payslips, and there's no extra charges for these. So they can access it through the web on any web browser on any device, or they can download our mobile app to have it on their mobile phone. And that's available on both Android and Apple. So here we can enter how many hours they work each week. What is their standard working week? How is pay worked out? Is it annual? Is it daily? Or is it hourly? If we enter an annual salary, then it comes back with a monthly pay rate, a weekly pay rate, day pay rate, and now an hourly rate. Okay, and then we can select whether or not they should be on a student loan plan, and the deductions will be calculated, whether or not they have a postgraduate loan, and then if they have left, you can enter the leaving date. Okay, so I ticked earlier in the edit company section to enable P11Ds, and as a result, the expenses and benefits section is now showing, and this allows me to then begin entering details into the P11D section, which will generate a P11D and can be submitted directly to HMRC from Nomisma. So you don't have to leave Nomisma to submit P11Ds or payroll submissions or pension submissions. It can all be done within the platform. Okay, so we can go through, enter their car, registration date. So you would know what to do here based on the car. There are registers that you can go to find out many of the details in relation to these cars. But it would just be a case of question and answer with the client. Okay, so let's add that. So that Tesla has now been added. You can see all of that details. You can update it or delete it at any time. Within the loans, you can enter all of your interest-free loans that have been put into the bookkeeping. And then any other assets or expenses that need to be on the P11D. So the most common one may be entertainment or travel and subsistence. Okay. And then we've got auto enrollment. So once you have created the pension scheme in Nomisma, you can then select which pension scheme this employee should be part of. So I've got one for testing here at the moment, and I'm going to go ahead and enter their enrollment date. Oh, let's enter that as 0. So on the right-hand side, you can select their contribution rates, and you can select whether or not the voluntary contribution should be a fixed pound amount. So they can just contribute £100 every month, regardless, or it could be a percentage. Okay, and we'll save that. And now go on to general terms. So within general terms, this gets pulled through from the company settings by default. However, you can change them if you had specific terms for the employee. And then you've got emergency contacts for the employee as well. So you can enter all of their details here. And this will just act as more of a HR element. It's a value-added service for the client. But if you wanted to give Nomisma to your client so that they can log in, they can access the payslips, they can see their employee records, this will allow them to keep track of all of the main contacts of their employees rather than maintaining an Excel spreadsheet or however else they're doing it at the moment. Okay, so that employee's now been added. So if I go back to the payroll dashboard, I'm in June 2021 at the moment, but if I go to employee list, I can see the start date was 2022. So I'm just going to go in, edit that to June 2021. So that we have that employee on the next payroll. Okay, great. So I've got 2 employees now, both are actual, not particularly useful. I didn't think that one through. But at this point, to begin running the payroll, you can select Run Payroll. And here, I've got a notification, and that's because someone has left some notes on the payroll. To view those notes, you can select this little icon, and the note will appear here. So if I go back to the payroll dashboard, select Employer Notes, these can be added at any time by any employee, and it's really just useful to as a communication tool. Let's say in your practice you have one person that runs payroll, traditionally, because I know that's how in most practices it works. Even in one of the practices that I worked in, where we had over 6,000 clients, we had one person running all of the payroll, and we had one or two people that knew about it in case of emergency, if he was ever off on annual leave or if he was sick, so that they could cover. But it was an absolute nightmare. So with the benefit of cloud-based technology, it allows everyone to be able to log in, everyone to be able to see the payroll, but you can also distribute the payroll to different members of staff because there's no extra cost to have those staff logging in to Nomisma. So you can allocate the payrolls to different staff. They can then really manage their clients and be client managers rather than just do the bookkeeping and rely on someone else doing the payroll, who then tells that person the journal that they need to bookkeep and that sort of things. With this, the journal's automatically posted once the payroll has been ran. Now, you may just have one person running it, which is absolutely fine, but that would just mean that the bookkeeping entry is done automatically for them. And if that employee that is doing the bookkeeping ever needs to go into payroll, they can, and they can see some details about it. But this employer notes, you could mention that tax code should be 1257L. And then whoever's running the payroll would see that when they run it. Okay, so by going back to run payroll, at this point, it's a case of reviewing all of the pay details. So you have this freeze pane, if you're used to Excel terminology, where you can just scroll and still see the employee names on the left-hand side whilst you're reviewing. And then when you select edit, it will actually take you into that employee record where you can then change that employee's pay details for that specific month. So I can actually update that employee details to £1 million for the month of June, and it will update all of the taxes accordingly, as well as pension contributions. Now, in this case, the pension contribution is actually restricted. It's limited to how much will be contributed, and that's been set up within the pension dashboard for that specific scheme. Okay, and then here you can decide whether or not to send payslips to the main contact or to the employees. And we can go ahead and run the payroll. Okay, so the first one was the one that I edited. So if I drill down into that employee profile, I can now see that June, they had a salary of £1 million, and we can access that payslip by selecting the PDF icon. Okay. And so that is how you can run payroll. Within the employee profile, I'll just go back, sorry. In the top right-hand corner, you do have opening balances. So like I said earlier, if you're migrating to Nomisma from another payroll provider mid-year, you can then go in and enter all of the opening balances for that employee. And you can also view additions and deductions or download the pay summary report in a CSV file, which would download this entire record for you. Now that payroll has been ran, if you are using another software for bookkeeping, we make the journal entry really easy whether or not you're using Nomisma. So you can simply go up to journals in the top right hand corner and then select the view icon, and that will show you exactly what journal needs to be posted based on the payroll that's been ran. So we've got £1 million, sorry, £1,008,333.33 to be posted, and the journal balances. So you can just download that into a CSV or a PDF and then post that into any bookkeeping software provider you may be using. Okay, so that is, so far we've been through how to set up the company, how to add employees, how to run payroll. There are many other elements of Nomisma as well. I probably won't be able to cover them all today, but we've still got the pension to run through, how to download tax code notices directly from HMRC, and some useful reports on the agent level and the business level, how to manage annual leave and manage filings to HMRC. I'll also show you how to make an amendment to a payroll and undo a filing. Okay, so on the left menu, we've also got this pension dashboard in addition to the payroll dashboard. And the reason why we've developed this is just to segregate a list of all of your employees. Let's say if there's a payroll with 500 employees, you when you're reviewing pension, you would just want to see the ones that are on the pension schemes. So there may be 500 employees, but only 200 of them may be on the pension. So that's why we've separated that for you. What I'm going to do to show you how that works is actually remove this individual from the pension scheme. So we'll just change the scheme to none and save that. Oh, actually, let's do an opt-out date. Oh, sorry. Yeah, auto enrollment. So they have to be enrolled by default, and then they've opted out on the 30th of June. Okay, so now that employee is no longer in the pension scheme. Their pension contributions are no longer being calculated. And if we go to the pension dashboard, they're not visible on this scheme. Okay, but in the top right-hand corner, you can edit the company, which will take you to the edit company details, where you can go into the pension details, like we saw earlier. You've got the ability to add a scheme, so you can actually add it manually. You can link an existing, which will prompt you to select which pension provider you're using. And then you can authorize it, and it will create an official link so that you can make all of your submissions. Or you can create a brand new scheme, and that will allow you to create a scheme with Nest directly from Nomisma. You can view schemes. So right now I've got a scheme set up that is with Nest. You can assess employees, and you can also view Pension Sync, which is our third-party partner that we use for pension filings. Okay. So we won't cover too much of Pension Sync today, but if anyone wants to find out more about that, feel free to get in touch with us and we can help you. So from the pension side, if we were to go in and edit this employee, then you can go into the pension details and adjust their contribution rates. By going back, you can also add voluntary contributions. And then this will add it to the employee contribution amount. And when you're hovering over it, it will show you the split between employer and the voluntary contributions. Okay. And when you actually go into view schemes, you can edit the scheme. So you can decide exactly how the calculation should be performed. Should it be custom or qualifying earnings? Do you want to use the net pay arrangement or relief at source? And then you can also select the employee contributions, the employer, and enter all of your group IDs, which you can get from the pension provider itself. Okay, so that's the pension. Within tax payment, if you have the payment management enabled, this is where you can begin doing the reconciliations. But as you saw, I just ran June's payroll, and as a result of not having tax payment or payment management enabled, it just marks as all of the payroll submissions as paid in full. So you can't really do a reconciliation as to how much is due to HMRC. So I always recommend using the payment management. It's a little bit of extra effort because you may need to log into the HMRC portal, make sure that your client has actually made payment. They haven't been charged any interest. And if they have made payment, enter the payment here, enter the interest they've been charged here, so that you can do the full reconciliation. Okay. The next step then, we've got filing management. So you can see a list of all of the different filings that need to be made. So FPSs and EPSs. You can see the gross wages, the tax, the employee NI, all of the details, and the filing status at the end. Yeah, so at the moment, they're all pending. So I could go through and submit all of these in bulk and select the reason as to why it's late and submit that to HMRC, or I can select not to submit. And you may do that because they've already been filed elsewhere and you're just doing this to catch up. If you, because you can use this as a way of entering your opening balances. If you migrate across in, say, May 2022, and you've already ran April elsewhere, you can enter April's payroll into Nomisma, make sure that everything is exactly the same as it is in the other software, run that, mark it as filed, and then your opening balances will be in. So that can be an alternative way of doing that. But we're just going to do already filed and then not to submit. Okay, so 5 RTIs are now set as not to submit, and that just locks the payroll so that they can no longer be undone. You may have noticed before there was a button that said undo payroll. So those filings have been marked as not to submit, and you can switch between payroll, pension, and P11D. So within the pension, we've got 3 pending filing as well, and then P11D, we've got 1 record here, which is it hasn't been populated, and I believe that's because the details I entered were in the new tax year rather than the current. So if I was to go to 21, 22, I would probably see that P11D. Let's see. I'm not. I would have to have a look at that. I'm not sure what I've done, but where this is a test account, sometimes things don't go to plan. So with the filing management, a common question is, I filed to HMRC, I want to make an amendment to a payroll. How do I do that? So what you would need to do is actually go to filing management, select the payrolls that have been filed and select undo on them to undo the submissions. Once you've done that, you'll need to go back to the payroll dashboard, and you'll notice now that the undo last payroll button is back. So you'll need to undo that, and that will roll us back from July back to June. So we can select OK. And now we're back in June. So at this point, you can then go ahead, run the payroll, make the amendment, and then go back to filing management and make the filing to HMRC. And that is exactly how you can make an amendment. It's relatively easy. It doesn't take very long. Okay. And then we've got leave management. So all of the annual leave that's been added to Nomisma will be stored here. You can add leave here as well. But if we go back to the payroll dashboard and select add leave on this employee, we can select the type of leave and then when the leave was taken. So I'm just going to go back to June 2021. And then save that. Okay, so the leave record is saved successfully. If I go into that employee record now, select edit employee details, and then if I go to general terms, at the bottom here, we've got our annual leave schedule, and the entitlement was 28, and they've now taken 22 days annual leave, leaving a balance of 6. And then within leave management, I can see that leave that's been taken as well. Okay. And then finally, last but not least, on the employer side or the business level of Nomisma, we've still got the agent level to look at, but we've got some reports here. So we can go ahead, view an employee details list. So that's just all of the details that we've entered. You've also got their annual salary, their day rate, and their hourly rate. And then we've got the individual employee pay schedule, P45, P60, and P11D forms. So this is where we can actually see a P11D that's been generated for a specific employee. Oh, and great, this is where I can see the Tesla as well. And that's exactly what I was looking for. Okay, so the previous P11DB that I downloaded, it was showing as 0 tax due because there is 0 tax due on the P11D itself. I added an electric car rather than a petrol or a diesel. Okay, and then we've got on the right hand side some company level reports. So BACs, payment upload file, like I said earlier, really useful if you are giving these to your clients. Not all accountants, bookkeepers, and payroll bureaus do this. So if you want to go the extra mile, make your client's life a little bit easier, you may even be able to charge a bit extra for this because you're saving them so much time. I would recommend having a look at that and introducing your clients to it and just making their life easier, like I said. And then again, in the reports, we've got this data provisioning service. Now, what this does is it will take your HMRC login credentials, it will go to HMRC, and it will download all of the tax code notices for this employer. So if you had 20 employees, you'd be able to see all of the tax code notices here, any P6s, P9s, student loan notices, postgraduate notices, everything will be stored here. And from this page itself, you can actually select apply, and that will apply the update to the employee record and just make your life a little bit easy. So you don't have to wait for the post to come in order to do this. You don't have to worry about the fact the post may not arrive in time, or you may not have been notified about a tax code notice that has been sent to an employee and not the employer, or the employer simply hasn't forwarded the notices to you. It can all be obtained here. Okay, so that is it for an overview of the business level of Nomisma's payroll. Now, moving back to the agent level, on the left menu here, we've got a few different pages. So the dashboard, as you can see, gives you an overview of your whole practice, some KPIs along the top, how many of your payrolls are on auto payroll, how many are manual, how many pensions you're running, and how many P11Ds you have. And then in the middle, you've got your payrolls, how many are overdue, due within 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, and the statuses of all of them. And again, you can drill down into these numbers to see what they are. And you've got the same for pensions on the right-hand side. And then at the bottom, you've got exactly the same data, but instead of grouped by status, it's grouped by employee. Yeah, so you have real insight as to how your business is being operated and managed. So the next page we've got is a run payroll. We had a look at it earlier, but I didn't mention that you can also send email from this page. So if you wanted to email all of these clients, you can email them from here. Okay, and then we've got submit RTI. So within the submit RTI, rather than just on a business level where we went to the tax filing or the filing management, so here you can see all of the business RTIs. Here you can actually see all of the RTI submissions across your entire practice, and you can submit these in bulk. So here you'd then be able to select reasonable excuse, and then submit to HMRC. So without going into each individual employer record, you can do it here. You can also undo payroll submissions here. If you wanted to send it back for an amendment because there's an error, you can add a note and undo the payroll and then send it back to whoever's producing it or ran it and put it into the submit stage. You've also got a top-level overview of all of your P11Ds that needs to be submitted and the company they relate to. And here you can then download the P11D. So sorry, this is the P11DB form that we looked at earlier. And then you've also got the same for pension contributions. Okay, and within reports, so we've got agent level reports as well as business level, but within the agent level, the data provisioning service that I mentioned earlier about downloading tax code notices for individual employers, by selecting this one, it will actually download tax code notices across your entire client base. It will store them all here, and then you can apply all of the notices in bulk across all clients and all employees. Now, traditionally, this was done manually or on a by employer basis. And as far as I'm aware, we're the first company that has done this on an agent level so that you can apply it across all of your clients. And the reason why we've been able to do this is because we're cloud-based and we've designed it for accountants and bookkeepers. So we're all for working on your efficiencies, how you can work better, how you can save time, and ultimately how you can become more profitable. So features like this and the automated payroll can really, really help you be more profitable and work more efficiently as well. Because one of the most common terms, or one of the most common things I've heard from many accountants and bookkeepers, is that they actually outsource their payroll because it's not profitable. But I believe the total opposite. By using these features, especially for director-only submissions, it's potentially a 95% profit margin because you set it up at the beginning of the year, it runs automatically, and you just review to make sure that the pension filings are going through and the payslips are being sent. So if you had 100 of them, your administration is pretty much zero, or I would say 5% because of the initial setup and the ongoing checking, of course. But within reports, there are some other checks that you can make. So you can see all of your wages journals. You can see the accounts linking and how they're linked between different companies. We've got tax rate tables, auto-enrollment employers without staging dates. So by navigating around and having a look at some of these, you may find some of this information useful, and you can get a top-level overview of all of your client base. Okay, so that is payroll. We've covered it in quite a lot of detail. There, as always, there is more. And like I said, if you want to have a more detailed overview of the payroll module, then you can always get in touch with one of our team. We'd be happy to help you on that. We can either book in a one-to-one training session and answer your specific questions, or you can attend another one of these webinars anytime you like. Okay. Now, the next part of this is CIS, so the Construction Industry Scheme. And within Nomisma, we've built a dedicated module to this so that you can manage all of your contractors and all of their subcontractors. Now, the reality of the tax itself is that it's not too extensive. It's relatively straightforward, but it's very admin extensive, and you're relying on the subcontractors and the contractors to get things right. Now, these are builders, so not everyone is on top of their admin because it's not a priority in their lives. And that's where it gets a little bit difficult. So within Nomisma, we've built a system so that you can manage the CIS and manage all of the subcontractors, verify their subcontractors, all of it within the platform. So on the dashboard, again, we've got some KPIs. We've got some details about upcoming returns and our deadlines, which have been assigned to individual accountants. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a list of our contractors. So we can add a new one, or we can go into individual contractors to review their details. Now, once you go into that contractor, you'll see a list of all of their subcontractors. So all of the individuals that are subcontracting to that contractor. And you would be able to go in and edit the subcontractors' details And at this point, you'll notice that we've got the verification status and the verification date and the deduction rate. Now, once you've entered all of these details, you can select verify subcontractor, and that will look at HMRC, check their records and pull through the details back to Nomisma. And that will only work as long as you are the agent of that subcontractor. Sorry, the agent of that contractor. Okay. So you can add subcontractors and then go through that whole process. Make sure all of them are verified. You've got their deduction rates so that the employer can, sorry, not the employer, the contractor can make the correct deductions from all of their subcontractors. Now, you can help the contractor by building a process so that as soon as they take on a new subcontractor, they get details from them, they give them to you, you verify them, and at the point that you verify them, that's when they can start using the subcontractor. But like I said, it's very process driven, so it'll be down to you to create that relationship with your client and make sure they stick to it. Okay, so that is the subcontractor. And if we drill down into the subcontractor, we can see all of the different submission periods that they're expecting. We can see the filing status of all of these. So ends are not filed, and yes, or Y is filed. And you can also drill down into these periods in order to begin adding invoices to them. So we've got net and gross, labeler amount, and then we can select how much of that is material, how much VAT was charged, and then it will work out the CIS deduction. Okay, so this individual is on the 30% deduction rate, and that is why the CIS deduction is £300, because it is £300 of their labor. But if we save that, I need to make sure it falls in the respective period. So the period is the 6th of February 2022 to the 5th of March 2022. So we can go at 15th of February 2022. Save that. And now that invoice has been added. So if I go back to the dashboard, select Reese, and look at February or February to March, that CIS submission has now been updated. And you can then go ahead and submit that to HMRC. So you can do that from the agent level by going to CIS filing, and you can see all of the records here. Most Tavern now has that record updated, and you can file that CIS directly to HMRC. And going back to the contractor, here we've got some reports, so you can generate the payslips by contractor. You can view a subcontractor list. All of the reports are here. So if we drill down into one of these, we can have a look at that payslip. Okay. If we go into, so this is March to April 2022. The payslip's been generated because it has been filed. Okay, and then we do have the ability to import subcontractors as well. So if you did have a contractor with a lot of them, put them into a CSV file and you can upload them instead of going through them manually. If you haven't verified them all, or if you want to re-verify, once they've been imported, you can then go through the verification process. Okay, so that is it for today's session. We've covered quite a lot. If you do have any other questions or queries, or if you want to find out more about Nomisma, feel free to get in touch with us. You can visit our website, which is nomisma.co.uk, or you can email support@nomisma.co.uk, or call us on 020-3021-2326, which is right here. I hope you found it useful, and take care. Thank you very much. Bye.